Contractors of Colorado. It's your host, Andrew Lavrins, with another episode of the Contractors of Colorado podcast. Today, I have our guest, Mariham Yaft. She is our contract and litigation attorney, and she's going to be a very, very good resource to this group. So I'm excited to get started, but before we do, as always, a shout out to our sponsors, the Builder's Outlet for all your cabinets, windows, doors, trim. They're a material supplier in Denver. They have a custom mill shop as well. So please tell them you're with the Contractors of Colorado. They will help you out. And again, the Business Foundry. Thank you for letting us use your space here in the podcast room. So if you have any needs for marketing, podcasts, business accelerator program, we have some things in the work with them that we're very excited to announce soon. So stay tuned on that. But as always, thank you to the Business Foundry for all of your support. So let's get started. Mariham, how are you?
Good. Thanks for having me, Andrew.
Of course. So I'm very excited about this one because out of everything that gets asked in this group, one of the hardest things on my end is I'm not getting paid, or, you know, these guys screwed me over. What do I do? And a lot of times it's too late. And you're a huge solution to that piece of the puzzle. So before we jump in, I'm excited, but before we jump into all the business side of things and how you can be a solid solution to that issue, tell us about yourself, your family, all of that.
I can do that. So as you can tell, I'm Australian. I moved here in 2015 with my husband. He's a Colorado native. We met in pharmacy school in Australia, of all places, and spent some time there after we got married, and then decided that it made more sense for us to move here. So we've been here since 2015. We have 3 beautiful kids, 8, almost 4, and 1.5-year-old. So we're a little bit busy. In terms of hobbies, I mean, I used to have hobbies before I had kids.
I understand.
I promise.
I understand.
So now, I don't know, I guess our hobbies are like baking, spending time with the family, keeping everybody entertained so that we can all stay sane. That's pretty much it right now.
Yeah, the kids are a handful. I have one and then another one on the way in December. Right. And we just had, with my 3-year-old, our first basketball practice yesterday, and It was fantastic.
I bet.
It was he's such a big kid now. It's crazy to see. But so I completely understand having your hands full. Yeah. Awesome. So tell us a little bit about your firm and what you do for contractors.
Yeah, so I work with Alchemy law firm, and we do all sorts of things for businesses of all sizes and commercial real estate. And so for businesses, we help them with mergers and acquisitions. So if anybody's buying a business or selling a business, we can help them put together solid agreements to really make that transition as smooth as possible. And then once the business is set up legally, then we help them with their contracts, with their relationships with their clients, with their subs, vendors and suppliers, and really make sure that all those relationships are also secure so that then they don't get into all the problems that can come down the line. And then what we also do is handle all sorts of disputes for businesses. So any contract-related disputes, what you were referring to before about not getting paid, which is obviously just extremely common and very unfortunate, but then we can help them through that. We help with any landlord-tenant issues. We help with construction defect claims, insurance claims that don't get paid out very well. We can really assist businesses with all the issues that they face, and if they need to go to litigation, then we litigate for them.
Wonderful. So both the protecting and setting up the correct infrastructure, as well as going to bat for the contractors or any other business professionals when things unfortunately do go wrong.
Yes,
awesome.
Yes, correct.
Well, wonderful. You can tell contractors why I'm so excited to have you here, because again, it is one of our most requested needs within the group, and it's just an unfortunate reality of this industry.
Right.
Awesome. Tell me about your service area. Do you do virtual consultations and meeting appointment or in-person meetings, all of that?
Yes, so we definitely do in person if people want to do in person. I realize in this day and age, and especially working with contractors, that that's not always convenient, and it doesn't need to be in person. So we're definitely flexible in that we can have conversations over the phone. We can have Zoom meetings. It really just comes down to what's going to make both parties comfortable, and then also depending on what we're doing. Sometimes it is easier to go through a contract in person and have that conversation to make sure that the client that we're working with is comfortable with everything, but it certainly doesn't have to be.
Yeah, that's one thing I can definitely appreciate. The contractor community, you need flexibility built in, so it's good to know you can accommodate there. But we're also a very handshake based relationships. This community is so cool. That's awesome. What got you into this? I mean, from pharmacy school to now doing law?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's bizarre. When I was in after pharmacy school, when I was a pharmacist, I did a lot of clinical pharmacy, and I worked in the pharmaceutical industry a fair bit. And through my work in the industry, I was around all things legal and realized that I actually really like just what lawyers do and the legal framework and the technicalities and finding loopholes and things, and that really was what I enjoyed doing. And so when we were moving here and I was applying for my pharmacy license, it just didn't feel right, and I knew that it wasn't really what I wanted to do. So I went to law school here, actually, at DU, and then I clerked for 2 years at the Colorado Court of Appeals and then at the Colorado Supreme Court. Went on to a large national firm and did defense work for pharmaceutical companies, medical device manufacturers, and all sorts of like Forbes 500 corporations. And it was through that work that I got a lot of experience in contracts, in just dealing with companies and understanding what challenges they face and defending them in that aspect. And then I decided to leave that and do something with small businesses. I really just from our experiences trying to start small businesses, there are a lot of things that small business owners face that they might not have all the information about and might not know necessarily how to protect themselves just because the information is not easily accessible to them. And so that's something I'm passionate about, is to make sure that just because you're a small business owner, it doesn't mean that you have to be any less legally protected than any other business. Those resources can be available to you and are available to you if you just look around.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons it's so critical that you are a piece of this verified affiliate network, and I'm very happy to have you here, is because now we get to get out in front of these issues.
Right. Now
this Contractors of Colorado community has someone they can come to. What services do you provide these contractors? A lot of contract, getting out ahead of it is dealing with contracts. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I guess one of the biggest issues that I see with contractors is that they don't have contracts in place, or if they have a contract in place, it's more than likely a template, like a generic template they got off a website or a certain service.
You don't say.
Which, it's not to say that that's not better than nothing. A lot of the time it is for really basic things. So those kinds of contracts will usually spell out like payment terms, invoicing, things like that. But if you take a closer look at the contracts, they typically don't have anything that protects you from liability. So the two biggest issues that contractors face, in my experience, are not being paid for their work, and then this risk of liability for really everything they touch that can then cause problems for them. So one of the biggest things we do is just make sure that they have good, solid contracts in place that will ensure that they get paid on time. And if they don't, they have some legal recourse that they can pursue to then make sure that they do get paid. And then to make sure that they're protected. So the last thing you want is to be a subcontractor working on a job and be blamed for something that you didn't actually do. But are you protected in your contracts? A lot of the times you're not. So those are the things, the really basic things that we start off with. And then a lot of the time we just have a lot of clients who maybe didn't have those kinds of contracts in place at the time and now need help to figure out what is the best way for them to fix the situation, whether it be that they're now facing some sort of liability that it shouldn't really be liable for, or they're trying to get paid when maybe they didn't have anything in writing. Can we enforce that? Can we help them get that money?
Yeah.
That's a lot of the work we do now.
Yeah, it's one of my least favorite topics of conversation that goes on within our community. It's a lot of the times it comes from the contractors themselves, but I also hear it from the homeowners where there's, not every contractor out there is quality or ethical. And that's something that we're addressing through our preferred contractor network and helping identify and put contractors through a verification process. But, we can't connect with everybody. And it's just good to have you as a resource in the community. And again, get ahead of that and make sure we're not just protecting the contractors. That's a huge part of what we want to offer, but protecting both parties. It's good for just contracts to be involved in these things.
Yes.
A lot of people come in with good intent and things go sideways or expectations are different, and having things in writing can remove some of that ambiguity in these situations.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I often give the analogy of contracts being like a marriage. You usually go into a marital relationship with really high hopes, and so you should. And a lot of the time it goes really well. And usually you'll plan really for the relationship, so payment, timelines, things like that. You'll usually have those conversations. A lot of the conversations people don't have are the conversations that we call the divorce conversations. What would happen if the relationship doesn't work out? What happens if you don't meet your obligations or I don't meet my obligations in the agreement? What's that going to look like? And that's what is usually the source of a lot of the legal disputes, and is also the thing that is always missing, or maybe at least lacking in contracts, are the divorce provisions.
Yep.
Yeah.
Our friend Sufyan here, the owner of the Business Foundry, said something once that really stuck with me. It's easier to have the hard conversations when things are easier when things are easy than it is to have the hard conversations when things are hard. So I really appreciate that. Is there any good stories that you have for us?
Let's see. So we actually just recently, so one of the things that we do as well is insurance bad faith claims. So if the insurance company is not paying out what it should, then that's also something that we do a lot of work on. We recently settled a case related to a fire where the insurance company didn't want to pay out for all the repairs that really were necessary to make the home whole again. And we helped the client and the contractors that were involved in that case get, I think, about 3.5 times more than what the insurance company had offered them the first time. So things like that, getting a lawyer involved in those claims as well can just make a really big difference. And that was one of the most recent wins that I can think of.
Awesome. That's really incredible. And again, we need somebody like that to go to bat, because sometimes it feels like, David and Goliath, like how are we ever going to take down an insurance agency? How do we advocate for ourselves? And it's I don't want to say it's easy, but when you have the right team in place and you have strategy, you have a shot. So that's great. Relationships, they're huge in this community. We just finished up our verified affiliate program where we get not just you, but all of our other affiliates together, CPAs and bookkeepers and our insurance providers, everybody that is a resource to this community. How do you build your relationships with your contractors, with your clients?
Yeah, so it really helps when we come in, obviously, early on into the business because it helps us understand the client's business. But our goals is always to understand what their goals are and how they operate and know the intricacies of their business because that helps us help them better. So that's one of the big things I do with my clients is actually, so the initial consult is always a free consultation where we sit and I just want to hear about their businesses, about what they do, what they're passionate about, what kind of work they want to do more of, what kind of work they want to do less of, and really understand the risks that they face because there are not two professions that are the same. They're not even really two clients that are the same, even if they're in the same profession. So just really understanding their business, I think, really helps us build that relationship of trust, and also helps me help them better because then I'm more knowledgeable about what they do. So that's one of the most important ways for us to build relationships and trust with the contractors. And then the other thing is we also just like to be accessible. So sometimes they don't necessarily need a contract written up or they don't have a legal dispute, but they just have a legal question of, am I doing the right thing here? Is this a relationship I should get into legally? What is my risk? Just like a little bit of advice and consultation, and we offer that. And if I understand their business and know them, then it's easy for me to quickly assess the risks with them or be able to help them with little things that they might not have help with. We like to act as their outside in-house counsel because they obviously, a lot of them don't have legal assistance, and that's what we can offer them.
Yeah, it's a tremendous opportunity for this group to have that resource here. So again, thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure talking with you. I guess as a way to wrap this up, is there any final thoughts or questions you have or anything there that you want to speak directly to the community?
Yeah, I guess the one thing I would say is if you're not sure if you're legally protected in your contracts or if you're doing something that you're not sure you have protected yourself against all the possible risks, don't bury your head in the sand. Make sure that you seek legal advice, whether it be from us or from anyone who can help you with this. But the worst thing you can do is ignore it or say you'll deal with it later because sometimes later it's too late. So be proactive and definitely get on top of all those things and just nip them in the bud when you can.
Well, thank you again. It's an absolute pleasure having you as part of this group. I can't say enough of what a resource you're going to be to the community. All the contractors out there, this is someone that you need to meet. Mariham is here to help and be a resource, just like all of our verified affiliates. I like to say there's a reason why you're here. So thank you again.
Thank you.
I guess to wrap this thing up, let's give a shout out to our sponsors. Thank you, Business Foundry, for everything you do. One of our best supporters here. We have our monthly meetup for the Contractors networking group, where you can come build your trade partner network, meet other contractors, learn quick informational sessions from our verified affiliates like Mariham here. And then the Builders Outlet, doors, windows, cabinets, trim, and a custom mill, anything you need for your material supply. They are our go-to for all things in the Denver metro area and across the Front Range. So don't be afraid to reach out to them. Thanks, everybody. It's always fun doing this. So I'll see you next time. Have a good one.